We will now call our meeting to order. We will begin with the pledge. We will now begin with comments from Superintendent Moore.
Good evening. Core belief number 1 in our strategic plan says every student deserves to be engaged in relevant, rigorous, and meaningful learning each day. Anthony Wasilewski, Jr., is an 11th grader at Garner Magnet High School, and he understands this relevance in a way that is far more personal than any of us could have imagined when that core belief was written. Anthony is taking classes in the school's Public Safety Academy after the skill and level-headed approach of first responders saved his father's life 6 years ago following a serious accident. Instructor Reggie Hocutt recently coordinated a reunion between Anthony's father, and the life flight nurses who saved his father's life. All of them shared their experiences during an emotional class visit last week, which showed students the dramatic impact that first responders can have. Anthony Jr. is now considering a career in law enforcement so he can help people in need. Garner's unique Public Safety Academy prepares students for careers as firefighters, police officers, EMTs, and with more specialized coursework and hands-on training. The Academy helps produce graduates who leave here ready to change the world. More details about Anthony's story and the class visit can be found on the district's homepage at www.wcpss.net. Congratulations to Freddie Lee Heath, who recently received the 2018 Raleigh Medal of Arts, the city's highest arts honor. For more than a quarter century, Freddie Lee has been inspiring Wake County students at all grade levels to pursue a love of the arts with commitment and passion. He currently leads more than 500 arts instructors in all disciplines. This honor is a testament to both Freddie's career and the district's commitment to the arts. We know that the arts teach students the value of collaboration, attention to detail, and persistence. Students who pursue an interest in the arts are more likely to succeed in school, at work, and in life. And that helps explain why the Wake County Public School System has continued to prioritize arts funding even when faced with budget challenges. People like Freddie Lee fully understand the importance of arts education for all, and in turn, give it their all. Our thanks to him and to all of our dedicated arts instructors. Finally, tonight, as we prepare for the Thanksgiving holiday, I'd like to share the story of one singularly generous student. While there are many stories of thanks and generosity, this particular story shows what one person can accomplish by simply making the decision to do so. Gilberto Hernando Cruz, a student at Athens Drive Magnet High School, donated 250 pounds of food to his school's fund drive. That's 1/3 of all the food donations collected school-wide. Let's take a look at this feature story from WRAL.
Local high school is doing its part to help put food on the table for those in need this holiday season. Deborah Morgan is here now to show us how one student in particular is making a big difference. Deb?
Well, Catherine, Athens Drive Magnet High School in Raleigh has collected food for those who need it. So far, students and staff had gathered about 750 pounds of goods, but 1/3 of that came from just one source.
When you're a freshman in high school, rumors and reputation matter.
And I guess word just spread around about me.
And this 16-year-old Athens Drive student has earned his reputation.
Gilberto Hernandez Cruz.
You can call him Gil for short.
It's like a nickname, you know?
You can also call him Inspired.
Let's be for real. There's a time where things are really difficult, you know? But like, in the end of the day, those difficult moments are just going to push your limits.
Gilberto was inspired to help.
I really enjoy helping people.
So using the money from his part-time work doing odd jobs at this auto center for $80 a week, Gilberto bought food to donate to the food drive at school for Backpack Buddies, a program that sends home food with students who may otherwise have little to eat.
I donated like 250 50 pounds of food, you know.
That's a full third of total donations collected from the entire school. He humbly credits his homeroom teacher with supporting him.
Oh, he is a beautiful angel coming to my classroom. Teachers don't make a lot of money, but that feeling that you get when somebody do good things, there is no way to measure that.
This one right here.
Gilberto knows the value of a can of corn. You see, when he was in the 3rd grade, he would pick up a backpack bag just like these from his favorite teacher.
Everyone likes food, you know. Let's be honest. But like, from receiving it from a special person, that's something deep, you know.
Gilberto points to his parents and family and says it's their example that makes him who he is today.
Gilberto, you know, I'm that special guy, you know, that tries to help anyone.
Remarkable young man. Some of the food he donated will be distributed to his classmates. Athens Drive maintains a food pantry for any student who needs help. Catherine?
That concludes my comments.
I needed a prep for that one to come right after that. Yeah, all I can say is both his humility and the fact that he's remarkable at as a student, both recognizing that someone great gave it to him and how great he is. And I couldn't agree more with his last statement. I mean, he is that great special person, which also speaks to the impact that all of our schools with food pantries and backpack buddies and all of our community partners who partner with us mean a lot and make a difference. And it's also both overwhelming emotionally, but also heartfelt, the way that our community and our students step up to support each other. So that's how I'm going to recover from that surprise right there. I also don't have a lot of comments. The only note I made for myself is to thank Freddie Lee, and so you did that. So I will add that yet again, his fabulous dance moves were showcased. So if you didn't see, I'm sure you can find online. WTVD actually does the spotlight now for the last 2 years before the parade. So not on WRL if that's where you watched it, but WTVD because they do it right in front of their studio. And you can see several of our dancers. And this year, Freddie Lee, I know you're listening to me somewhere. I did not get a new red shirt. I still have my burgundy one from last year, which I did habitat build in my shirt from last year. But again, it's always amazing to see. We know that our schools individually do great. We get to see pieces of gold. We all visit them. But for me, there's nothing like seeing the collective of our students work together and the way they shined. Although it was very cold on Saturday morning, they were full of energy, and it was great to see them. And just speaking more to why he deserved it. So hats off to Freddie Lee and all of our dance and arts teachers who made sure that came off without a hitch. They look beautiful. And my favorite hashtag is arts is education. And without that being said, Dr. Martin.
Thank you. I can't not also give my thanks to Freddie Lee. Freddie Lee interacted with both of my children in many ways. He's actually became a good friend of the family because of our engagement with the arts, an inspiring person. The young man that we saw from Athens, absolutely an inspiring young leader. Reminds me of many of us were at the North Carolina School Boards Association meeting last week. And I think the most inspiring part of that conference was the plenary where they invited 5 students from across the state of North Carolina to address all of the school board members about a range of topics. And that group of young people I thought was incredibly inspiring, dealing with everything from equity to class schedules. A great group of young people. And we need to keep building the capacity to serve as this young man has as well. I had the great privilege to speak with the Cary Chamber of Commerce Education Subcommittee. They wanted to get some a little bit more understanding of the overall assignment process. We had some very good discussions around that. And again, I thank the Chamber for engaging in that work. We really are in this business together. I had the wonderful opportunity yesterday morning to attend a book club at Combs Elementary School. This was a book club for parents and students. Everybody read the book Wish Tree, a marvelous little book. And it was a very intergenerational time to talk about the book, to do a few activities. Really inspiring. About 70 people showed up for a book club at 7:30 in the morning before school started. And finally, today, I and several of my colleagues attended the Turkey in the Hole annual tradition at Mount Vernon Middle School. A fantastic opportunity where that community really serves the larger community in recognizing the Thanksgiving time. And we had a wonderful time. They're great hosts. Thank you.
Mr. Sutton.
I just want to mention that many of our educators participate in professional development. We, too, as board members, are required to do that. And so I had an opportunity, myself and Area Superintendent Cedric Williams, and we were accompanied by a team of our amazing principals, and spent some time in Baltimore last week at the National Alliance of Black School Educators, and attended a lot of wonderful workshops on leadership, board governance, equity, and a number of things. And so some of that information is being compiled in terms of what we learned and experienced while we were there, and hope to bring that back and share with our colleagues here. As Dr. Martin mentioned, we also participating in the North Carolina School Board Association annual conference, and a lot of good information there too, as we continue our professional development as a board and individuals as well. So I just wanted to highlight those two opportunities. Thank you.
Ms. Kushner.
Thank you. Good evening. I wanted to congratulate the fourth graders at Green Leadership and World Languages Magnet Elementary School. They participated in Arts in Action. So the entire fourth grade put on a show for their school and performed dances that were inspired by the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. And it was not quite like being at Hamilton, but very impressive for fourth graders. And what's great about Arts in Action is that every fourth grader is able to participate in this program. And you could see the wide variety of fourth graders who were out there strutting their stuff, and some really took advantage of the opportunity to be on stage. So congratulations to those Green students, and wanted to also thank the Mount Vernon team for inviting us out to Turkey in the Hole. It's a great holiday tradition. 33 years they have been building fires and roasting turkeys and sweet potatoes in the embers in the ground. It was a really great day. So happy Thanksgiving to all of our families, and I hope everyone enjoys the rest of the week.
Mr. Agee.
Yes, so we're back here to look at the enrollment plan again today. 2 weeks ago during the work session, Mr. Sutton made mention, he stated that it seemed like it was a game of whack-a-mole. On that day, I agreed with him about that, but I thought about it a little bit more. And it may be a game of whack-a-mole on the staff side, but I think it more falls into let's make a deal for the parents, because there's no clear feeling of stability. We talk about our 4 pillars here for enrollment, but the 4 pillars, if they don't rest on a solid monolithic foundation, they're not going to be very stable and supportive of anything. I know the parents, mostly what I hear, want proximity, and I think that could be the foundation for the enrollment plan, but that takes having the seats available where you live, and that's what we're short of, and that could have been. Thank you.
Mr. Blumberg, I'm adding you to the mix today. We can. Okay.
I appreciate.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. I'll wait.
Go ahead. No. Go ahead.
I appreciate the privilege. I know it's out of sorts, but I wanted to make sure that we got an announcement out of resolution of 2 major sort of significant long-standing complaints against the Wake County school system, and wanted to do so now. I'll announce it again at the end of the meeting, but in case anybody's leaving for the Thanksgiving holiday, I wanted to sort of get the news out. So the Wake County Board of Education agreed to a voluntary agreement with the U.S. Department of Education Office of Civil Rights to resolve a complaint filed in 2010 alleging racial discrimination in the school system's student discipline practices. The Office of Civil Rights made no findings that the school district violated any laws and agreed to close the case entirely in 2021 if the district continues to implement current measures and take certain additional steps to address potential causes for disparities in student discipline. The Office of Civil Rights also informed the district that a complaint based on the actions of a different school board in 2010 related to a student assignment policy would be closed with no findings of legal violations and no required action on the part of the school district. Back to the student discipline matter, the Office of Civil Rights, OCR, acknowledged the many voluntary and proactive steps taken by the school district, including multiple revisions to discipline policies by the school board to reduce suspensions, the creation of an Office of Equity Affairs and its work with schools, expansion of peer mediation and restorative justice circles as alternatives to out-of-school suspensions, an equity collaborative and staffed by school district and school leaders that has dramatically reduced suspensions in target middle schools, development of a comprehensive memorandum of understanding with every local law enforcement agency that defines the role of school resource officers and helps reduce unnecessary law enforcement referrals. If you would like additional information about the resolution agreement, that Tim Simmons will have additional information to provide. But I wanted to get that out again. I'll announce it per the agenda at the end of the meeting, but wanted to get it out at this time. And thank you for the courtesy to let me speak.
Thank you. I always, felt bad for skipping you, so I appreciate being able to call on you this time. It's a great end. Ms. Mahaffey.
I was, a couple weeks ago, contacted by one of our high school students inviting me to their Moonshot project presentation at Apex Friendship High School for the Academy of Engineering and Advanced Manufacturing. And many thanks to Tiffany for the invitation. It's always exciting to see what's going on in our schools, but it's even more so when you hear from a student that they're excited to show you what they've been doing. And so students looked at a problem within their school, and they went through different iterations of how to solve the problem, troubleshooted it, shared different roadblocks that they came into, so they got to show their learning and how they grew. And they talked about everything from lockers that weren't being used to streamlining the parking lot exit so they can get out a little bit smoother, to issues addressing mental health in schools, and also prevention and awareness against the harms of vaping. And so it was really interesting to see how students not only presented that information, but also sharing how they will continue to go forward and bring that information out to the community. So for our facilities department and other departments, there will be some conversations from those students, but just really exciting to see not just the end of the learning process, but that learning is a continuum, and they're continuing to present those things. So many thanks to Tiffany and her classmates in the Academy of Engineering and Advanced Manufacturing for inviting me to see their work.
Thank you. Ms. Cash.
Actually, I don't have much to add to what everybody else has said, that we've been to the same events practically. Turkey in the Hole was definitely one of my favorites. So I just wish everybody happy Thanksgiving.
Mr. Fletcher.
And I will do the same. Happy Thanksgiving. Of course, appreciation to our folks who get recognized for their service in the community. Mr. Heath, I have to say, congratulations to the Green Hope men's varsity soccer team for becoming the 2018 state soccer champions. And Green Hope's just got a wonderful tradition of excellence in athletics and music and academics. And I must say, the Cary High School is right behind them. So last week, I don't think the results have been made public yet, but the Redvolution reading program, folks reported their results in, and while there were many schools that reached the goal, out of each area, one school is chosen to participate in the event at the RBC or PNC Arena. What is it? What is it now?
I think it's PNC.
At the Hurricanes Arena. How about that? For one of their practice sessions, and that'll be a marvelous day. So congratulations to all those young people who read, and for the school leaderships who organize those programs to promote reading in their schools. Thank you very much.
Thank you all very much. And to Mr. Fletcher's point, I will move on to ask for approval of our agenda.
Move to approve tonight's agenda.
We have a motion and second. All in favor, please note by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. The motion carries. And now on to our Employee Excellence Awards. I think Jason Kennedy is here to, yes, present. And to you, yes.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board, Superintendent Moore. It is my pleasure to bring you this evening the November 2018 recipients of Wake County Public Schools Employee Excellence Award. Awardees, when I call your name, please come to the front and be greeted by Superintendent Moore and remain up front until all recipients have come forward. Ahmed Benimram, Instructional Assistant, Reedy Creek Elementary. Mr. Ben, as we call him, is a standout. He is enthusiastic and peppy every day. He is willing to do whatever he is asked and does so with a smile. He understands students, connects with them, and builds relationships. Mr. Ben is adored by all students, staff, and parents at Reedy Creek Elementary. His positive attitude is infectious and makes others around him more positive. Tina Galucci, Coordinating Teacher, Academics, Curriculum Development, and Christina Zukowski, who could not be here. Tina and Christina have worked diligently to ensure all teachers are prepared to teach middle school math. On top of leading the procurement process of the new curriculum, Open Up Resources, each has overseen the professional learning. Most notably, when 7 truckloads of boxes arrived at the warehouse, they did not back down from that challenge. Each moved thousands of boxes and loaded numerous pallets so students and teachers have the materials they need. Ruth Garcia, Head Custodian, Forestville Road Elementary. Miss Root goes over and beyond the call of duty to be a valuable member of the Forestville Road family. She is an excellent leader in her position, and she also takes pride in supporting our students. She will offer opportunities for students to earn rewards with her to help take care of the school, serves as a mentor to students, jumps right in to help teachers, and is welcoming and helpful to our families. Thomas Guerrero, bus driver, Hillburn Academy. Mr. Tom truly goes above and beyond the call of duty. He communicates consistently with parents and makes them feel comfortable about putting their children on the bus. He builds strong relationships with students, too. Recently, at a bus stop where a student crossed a busy street, Mr. Tom communicated with the student and kept the student safe as a car ignored the stop sign that was out and the red flashing lights. Thank you, Mr. Tom. Aaron Lawrence, Instructional Facilitator, Intervention Coordinator, Yates Mill Elementary. As a key member of our team, Ms. Lawrence completes instructional walkthroughs, works directly with teachers, and serves as the co-chair for school improvement. She is passionate about increasing family engagement and promoting school equity. Our school is a better place to work and learn because of Mrs. Lawrence. Wanda Rosario, Parent Liaison, Wilburn Elementary. Mrs. Rosario has been an integral part of the welcoming environment created at Wilburn Elementary. She is a resource to all families as they work to connect with their child's education experience to impact their achievement. Her presence has also helped to remove language barriers so all families feel as if they have someone that they can connect with. She brings joy, comfort, and encouragement to the school community she serves. Nancy Virez Parada, Custodian, Salem Middle School. Nancy is the epitome of what this award strives to honor and recognize. She is dedicated to keeping Salem Middle School clean and safe for all of our students and staff. Nancy works nonstop. I don't ever think she stops moving. Whether she is dusting, sweeping, mopping, picking up trash, cleaning up after nosebleeds, helping a staff member move furniture, replacing paper towels, it doesn't matter. She always does it with a smile. Kathleen Yuska, School Counselor, East Garner Magnet Middle. Kate is an integral part of our school here at East Garner Middle. She spends her days working with small groups of students, running 504 meetings, dispensing medicine, and taking care of anything else that needs attention. Her afternoons are spent in intervention or SIP meetings, sponsoring the Run Club, or working on the latest drama production. Aside from all of this, she is one of the most intelligent, sincere, and caring persons that we've met. Hurricane Florence severely disrupted our normal day-to-day child nutrition operations due to school closings, staffing emergency shelters, food losses, and food delivery transportation barriers. Thank you to our team of shelter warriors that went above and beyond to provide meal service to all our evacuee guests here in Wake County. Without our shelter warriors, the next meal for these evacuees was unknown. Our shelter warriors provided continuous hot coffee, beverages, wholesome and nourishing meals, and snacks when and where it was impossible for these evacuees to provide for themselves. Not only did they provide food, but a sense of family was also provided as they cared for these individuals as if they were their own family members. I am humbled to have these individuals like these shelter warriors and many others on our child nutrition team each and every day to serve the children of Wake County Public Schools. Child nutrition employees are the unsung heroes when disasters like these occur. Rhonda Dillard, Dining Room Manager, Heritage High. Chuck Harris, CNS Training Specialist, Central Office. Danielle Harris, Dining Room Manager, Sanderson High. Kathy Hart, CNS Area Supervisor, Central Office. Jessica Jones, Dining Room Manager, Middle Creek High. Una Lynch, CNS Training Specialist, Central Office. Jennifer Patton Oskert, CNS Area Supervisor, Central Office. Tabitha Perry, CNS Support Specialist, Central Office. John Primus, CNS Area Supervisor, Central Office. Rick Stanford, CNS Area Supervisor, Central Office. Ricky Stevens, CNS Area Supervisor, Central Office. And Rajesh Valabanini, CNS Area Supervisor, Central Office. Can we give all of our awardees a round of applause? Awardees, if you could, turn and face the board.
Thank you, Mr. Kennedy. Thank each of you. I think I've heard every board member speak to the importance of every single person who impacts our students' lives, from our bus driver, our CNS workers, to our educators, school counselors. That's all of you this time. I mean, and so I think it might be the first time that I've actually heard every person that we talk about touching our students' lives be represented here. And I think all of the things that were said about you are representative of what we know that makes Wake County Public Schools the best school system and the best choice for all families and parents, and it is because of the work that you do. I think the word shelter warriors were used. I would say that is that a shelter warrior that's got a little buzz over there? I think the shelter, right? I think that might be your sound right now that we're going to go with. But I do believe that all of you are warriors on behalf of our students, and so I always like that we can commend you publicly and you can hear and see the applause from the board, but it does my heart good to see your smiling faces, to see the people here to support you, and to know that you can't always see us, but we're always speaking to the work that you do and recognize that our schools don't run without each and every one of you. And so thank you for everything you do, and thank you for everything that you will continue to do to touch our students and our families' lives. Thank you. Mr. Kennedy is trying to let you know you can either come with him or you can stay and join us. Yes, we'll take a quick break for those of you who would like to leave, so no problems at all.
Child nutrition, meet in the lobby. Yes, I was going to say. Yeah, visit with Okay, congratulations. Okay, I will make sure. Pictures. I invited her. Oh, yes. She was my one, too. Karen. Oh. My kids were getting down here time. Congratulations. Oh, you're welcome. Give me Gabriel.
Was that like an engineering design day thing? For all the first year engineering students?
Tell me. I know. He looked at me like, my gosh. She remembers.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
How are you?
We will now resume with our board meeting. While everyone gets settled back, I will take a personal point of privilege and recognize my lovely Sisters of the Divine Nine, Delta Sigma Theta, for joining us. I actually said that I have not seen you all in a while, so I appreciate being seen. So thank you very much for joining us. And they're also wearing red for Ed. I'm going to go with that today. Dual purpose, dual purpose. We will now move forward with our public comment. Citizens who sign up to address the board during public comment will be called on in priority order, first for items on the agenda and then for items not on the agenda. Each individual speaker will be allowed 3 minutes for remarks. Specific personnel or student matters are not appropriate for this public comment setting, but may be addressed through applicable WCPSS personnel, the grievance policy, or other applicable policies. Deborah McNaughton.
Hi. Thank you for having me. I wanted to talk to you about sort of profound disappointment in terms of the process this year with student assignment. There seems to have been like this really sharp laser focus on that the only way to solve the overcrowding at Mills Park Middle is to move Cameron Pond. And with a neighborhood that has put in tremendous hours to looking and searching and numbers and many other things, over the past 3 months, we've provided not only feedback, but suggestions and real alternatives. And after draft one, it was, well, we need more time to assess those alternatives. We've asked for meetings with the school student assignment, and that has not, we have not been allowed to do that. And after draft two, no changes, we submitted the same thing. So my point is that months and months after trying to find alternatives that would be win-win, not win-lose, to what we consider is a big loss for Cameron Pond, and I'll talk about that in a moment, we were told we need more time, we need more time, we need more time. And then when draft three comes out and we're saying the same thing, the response is, well, now there's not time because it wouldn't be fair to another neighborhood to consider a reassignment. So I'm really struggling to see how the process works. And really, we're left with a community that doesn't understand the rationale why. Over 90% of our entries on Wake and Vision have gone unresponded. We don't understand why, if the viable options that we proposed were evaluated and deemed not viable for some reason, and that would be good to know, or why this driven focus on Cameron Pond, who not only loses their current elementary, but their current middle. We lose our calendar, we lose our active transport, and we have no traditional option. So I know I've said this before, you know, in my case, I have 3 kids, one in middle school, one in elementary, and one in high school. And right now they're K through 12. And my family will now go on at least 2 calendars if my elementary and middle school get on the same track. But if they don't get on the same track, then I'm a working family that has 3 children and 3 different calendars. That's highly unworkable. And I think what's the most frustrating out of this process is that we see new constructions that are actually closer to schools that we are now being moved to, that are assigned to the schools that we go to now. We really struggle with that. Mr. Aggie said a moment ago, proximity is important, but we don't have the seats close to give you. But you do, and you're taking them away. And instead you're giving them to new neighborhoods that are farther away when they have options of uncapped schools that are close to them. So I'm sure there's a million things I forgot to say, but I feel like the options that it leaves my particular family and many families in my neighborhood is considering North Carolina virtual schools, leaving Wake County, or moving to Chase school assignment, which, as you can imagine, moving to Chase school assignment is not a really feasible option for families. Thank you.
Brenda Nichols.
Good evening, everyone, and happy Thanksgiving to you. A little early. Enjoy your turkey. I hope it's not dry. I do want to say, thank you for listening to us. I know you've been listening. I was just handed a piece of paper with Lindsay's notes on it, so I do realize that you are still considering options and thinking through things. Deb, I'll share this with you afterwards, but I'm still trying to take it all in. I see that you're trying, and I appreciate that. And I know we kind of accosted some of you after the last meeting, but that's because we're fighting for our children, and that means the world to us. And if we didn't have passion, and if we didn't take this opportunity to express how important their education is to us, then that's what you're here for. You need to hear this feedback. We're here for our kids, and we're trying to do right by them. And so please try to do right by them by considering all options, by just taking a moment, pause, just hit the brakes a minute, and vote to delay the decision until you have this worked out, because you're still working on it. I can tell you are, because this map that was just handed to me. You are sending us to a school that puts us into a construction zone for the next 6 years. Buses are never going to be on time to that school, leaving Cameron Pond and heading to the east. You're putting our children's lives in harm's way by having to travel through 6 years of construction on Carpenter Fire Station Road and Highway 55 and crossing a railroad track. You're taking them away from their family of educators and peers, and there are so many other alternatives that are available to you. So either, amend the plan with real viable solutions, which means taking the time to think about it some more and consider all these options we've given you. I did write you a very long email last night at about 10:45, so you may not have had time to read it all. I brought the picture of dirt, and I think that's one of the spots on this map that you're considering moving, so thank you. There are a lot more areas of dirt to consider. Just please, to Deb's point, don't allow the real estate developers, real estate agents to get rich off our kids' backs, okay? Perception is reality, as Mr. Sutton said, and, the perception is the new neighborhoods are favored, and that's just not right. We're within a walkable zone. Keep that protected walkable zone for the students of Cameron Pond South, and let them attend the schools that they're supposed to be attending, that they can see from their front yards, backyards. We're right there. They're a stone's throw away, less than 2 miles. Please. Thank you.
Are Justin and Larissa coming up together or separately? Okay, Justin, you're listed first. Absolutely.
Hello, I'm Justin Nichols, and this is my friend Caleb Farrell, and we are both 5th grade students at Mills Park Elementary School. We understand that you are trying your best to make the best decision for all kids trying to move here and go to school. But please, I really like my school, and I don't want to move. Thank you.
Thank you, Justin.
All right.
Larissa, who was cheering on Mom. Mom, you should cheer her on.
They decided on their own. I had nothing to do with anything they're saying.
Hello, my name is Larissa Nichols, and I am in 2nd grade. And I would just like to say, if you move us, then we're all going to be, Justin is going to be like going in different directions, and we won't be able to be at the same school. So then that means that we're separating each other. And like my mom said, that there's going to be a lot of construction on 2 of the roads, so it's going to be very dangerous for the kids riding the school buses.
Do you want to tell them your plan that you told Mommy in the car?
No.
Well, I'm going to do this because this is what you did for Mommy. So great job, Larissa.
Is that all you want to say?
And thank you both for your courage. You're already advocates. This evening we also have 2 informational items to be presented. Both look like they're by Mark Winters. First, the Finance Audit Committee report, following the comprehensive annual financial report, which board members, you have those documents in front of you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, board members, and Superintendent Moore. Each year we have an external financial audit firm conduct comprehensive review of the Wake County Public School System finance statements. The review for fiscal year end 6/30/18 is now complete. Tonight you'll hear from the chair of the board's audit committee and also from the audit firm. And following their presentations, I'll share highlights of the report as an information item. Dixon Hughes Goodman presented the financial report to the Audit Committee on November 16th. This is the first year of a 3-year contract with Dixon Hughes Goodman, recommended by the Audit Committee and approved by the Board of Education in April. All the requirements of this committee are found in Board Policy 8810. We're one of the few school systems nationally and the only school system in North Carolina, to our knowledge, that has an established audit committee in this format. Tonight we have Audit Committee Chair Sarah Martin to share the Audit Committee report on the financials. Following Ms. Martin, Tyler Beatty, a manager with Dixon Hughes Goodman, will present a summary of the audit from the perspective of the external auditors. Also here tonight is Josh Purrier, a Senior Assurance Associate with Dixon Hughes Goodman. As backup in assembly tonight, you have the PowerPoint shared at the Audit Committee last week. And that includes some financial information. I'll discuss similar information as we go through the financial report, and you can ask questions at the end if you care to. So for now, I'll turn it over to Sarah.
Good evening, friends. It's good to see you, and I bring great news to you that the Audit Committee did meet, as Mr. Winter said, on Friday of last week. We were pleased to receive the report from our external auditors and feel very confident that you will be pleased when you do have time to read the report in its entirety. They did give a clean audit report, to use terminology that most folks are familiar with. There were no findings that they brought to our attention, and no disagreements with management or any other items that would need to be reported to you. I did want to let you know that our committee spent time, as Mr. Winter said, going through the financial results. We did have some questions for the auditors. They were able to satisfy all of our questions, and hopefully they'll be able to satisfy yours as well. There are 2 items that you have. One is the report of the external audit firm. The other is the comprehensive annual financial report as prepared by the school system. And so at this time, I'd like to introduce the manager from the engagement, Tyler Beatty, and he will come forth to present his report to you. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Tyler Beatty. I am an assurance manager with Dixon Hughes Goodman. Before we start to go through the reports, I would like to recognize the finance team of the Wake County Board of Education, and we definitely appreciate all of their help and hard work in regards to the audit. So in front of you, you have two reports, the first being the report to the Board of Education, and the second larger document is the comprehensive annual financial report. In the letter to the Board of Education, it includes all required communications that us as auditors make to the Board of Education, and I'll go over some highlights in that report. So the first section of the letter to the Board of Education includes our responsibility as auditors, and it describes governmental auditing standards, which are the standards we follow to perform the financial statement audit, as well as the uniform guidance, which are standards that we follow to perform the single audit. In this report, we also describe any significant estimates that are in the CAFR, and we identified those estimates as the estimate of accumulated depreciation, and it's based on the useful lives of the depreciable assets of the board, as well as management's determination of the proportionate share of the net pension and the net OPEB liabilities. We did have a accounting principle that was implemented this year in GASB 75, and that accounting principle required the board to record their proportionate share of the net OPEB liabilities. In this report, we would report if there were any difficulties or disagreements with management that we had during the audit. We're pleased to report that we didn't have any difficulties or disagreements. If there were any uncorrected misstatements that were identified as part of the audit, we would report those to you in this report, and we did not have any. So if we switch over to the CAFR on page 1, you'll see the independent auditor's report on the financial statements. And as previously mentioned, it is an unmodified opinion with no findings in regards to the financial statement audit. And then we'll flip all the way over close to the back, beginning on page 121, and you'll see 3 independent auditors' reports that's related to our compliance single audit. On page 121 includes the report on internal control and compliance in accordance with government auditing standards. This is probably more well known as the Yellow Book report. And in this report, we didn't have any findings on internal control or compliance to report. The second independent auditor's report that starts on page 123 is the report on compliance and internal control for each major federal program that we audited as part of single audit. The major programs selected this year were the Child Nutrition Cluster and the Magnet Schools program, and we didn't have any findings to report related to those programs. And then the third report on page 125 is the independent auditor's report on compliance and internal control for state programs. And once again, we identified the major programs for state as the State Public School Fund and the Technology Fund. And once again, we didn't have any findings to report in that statement. So that's all I have, and I'll turn it back over to Mark.
All right, thank you. So I'd like to thank all those involved in the audit this year, including the finance and budget staff, internal audit, Dixon Hughes Goodman, and the audit committee. As I have in the past, I want to give a special thanks to Robin Presley, who heads up our accounting department. Robin is sitting in the back, as she likes to do. She put this statement together. We're unique in North Carolina that we do our own financials. They're audited by an audit firm. Most school systems have the auditors do their financials, and Robin puts this book together each year. And it's pretty amazing that it all works out on a yearly basis. And I will say the Board of Education was awarded certificates of excellence from GFOA and ASBO for its book for the 29th consecutive year. She hasn't been doing it quite that long, but it's real close. It's not been far off that. So I want to take you through the financial document with a brief description of each section. We start with the introductory section, which includes the letter of transmittal, and you'll see those awards of excellence in there also. The financial section includes the management discussion and analysis beginning on page 4 and summarizes the financial performance of the fiscal year. The financial reports begin on page 12 and include detailed statements of revenues, expenditures, and balance sheets for all funding sources and the footnotes to all statements. The single audit section begins on page 121, includes the auditor's reports on internal controls and compliance. Schedule of expenditures of federal and state awards on page 131 and 132. It provides you information on grant revenues and expenditures. As Mr. Beatty mentioned, pages 127 and 129 include the schedule of findings and question calls for the financial, federal, and state review areas. And we did receive an unmodified opinion with no findings or material weaknesses, and this is the goal of the school system, meaning that the audit was clean and the financials give a true representation of the financial status of the school system. So the only section I really want to go through with you to look at numbers is in the statistical section beginning on page 86. This section provides global information about the school system and the county. The schedules associated with the county are directly from Wake County Government Financial Report. The first report I ask you to turn to is on page 96. And this is the general government expenditures by function. The schedule provides the per pupil expenditures for the fiscal year. The column to the far right of the page on 97 is the total per pupil, including operating and capital expenditures. 2 columns to the left is the total operating costs. And if we stop building and renovating schools today, this would be the costs associated with operating the school system. The operating expenditures increased by $354 per pupil to the highest per pupil total in 10 years. So something I'm going to do in this schedule and in the revenue sources is if you take the 2009 per pupil for operating, which was $8,220, and you add inflation, the 2018 per pupil would be roughly $9,680, which is an increase of $600 per pupil. The instructional services column on page 96 in the first column increased by the largest amount, and most of that operating increase was related to the state salary schedule and/or benefits, and I'll speak to that in a minute also. The next report is on page 95. It's the general governmental revenues by source. This report provides the revenues received for the fiscal year by categories over the past 10 years, and all columns are related to the operational revenues except for the county capital improvements. And this is where we record the actual revenues used from the bond program. The first column on this page is the funding that the school system receives from the state. Again, I'm going to speak to, if you look at 2009, we received $734 million. If you look at 2018, we received $908 million. So the increase over that time is approximately 24%. However, if you take our student population growth of just over 16% and our inflation of close to 18%, you see that the change should be in the 34% range, which would equal a total of $985 million. So based on those numbers, we are funded at $77 million less than we were in 2009. Now, that's not saying 2009 was the correct funding. I don't know what the correct funding is necessarily, but it does tell you that we're funded at a lower rate. The total increase in state revenue over that 10-year period, the 908 less the 734, is $174 million. Instructional salaries, which are teacher and teacher-type positions, medical insurance, and matching retirement, has increased over that period by $185 million. So the change is $174, teacher and teacher-type salaries, and matching retirement and hospital has increased by $185. So that tells you that all other categories are left in a shortfall. As a percentage of the total operating funding, our local dollars, which is the county appropriation, is now carrying 2% more of the burden, and the state is 2% less of the burden from 2009. So the final pages I want to look at start on page 93. This a schedule of fund balance over the last 10 years. The top half of this schedule is our general fund or local fund balance. Total fund balance in the first column is $48.8 million. This is a $9.2 million decrease compared to the prior year. If you look to the right of the schedule, you'll notice a decline in fund balance in most years since the year 2012. You'll see at the peak it was $92 million in 2012. The fund balance was built up over that time as a result of ARA funding, central office reductions in force, and other budget cuts, and cautious spending on the heels of the recession. Our school system, as did others in the state, accumulated higher fund balances to protect against the declining revenues that we faced. This year's fund balance declined due to the utilization of appropriated fund balance to meet the expenditure requirements. And just a note on fund balance, we often hear this discussion in the spring. Fund balance is generated by revenues over expenditures. Our decrease in fund balance of $92.2 million was because of excess expenditures over revenues. We often hear that you have budget available. Budget does not create fund balance. It's revenues versus expenditures. So the $48 million consists of categories beginning with the non-spendable inventories and prepaid expenditures. The inventory category includes the end-of-year balances for areas such as maintenance and instructional warehouse and transportation. As we have in the past, we purchased bulk fuel at reduced rates, and at the end of this year, we had $2.6 million in inventory, so that's the largest piece of our inventory. The next section is restricted, which includes accounts receivable. Those are funds owed to the system but not collected, and carry forward encumbrances. And the funds in these categories are restricted by state statute and not available for use. As you continue down the column, the next section is assigned fund balance, and I'll come back to special projects in a moment and cover the other categories. The insurance line item, $10.6 million, includes the school system self-insurance for dental and workers' compensation, and a reserve for liability claims. This reserve was established to cover potential claims below the planned deductible limits or to cover the deductibles. The school system has increased its deductible over the past few years to maintain an affordable premium. Our deductibles currently range from $25,000 to $250,000. The $1.5 million in the flexible benefit plan represents the balance of funds collected from employees and not spent to date for medical independent care flex accounts. And the $4.9 million of subsequent years' expenditures are obligated to balance the current year's fund balance. The $4.9 million, if you look at the schedule compared to 2017, is an $8 million reduction in comparison to the prior year. The $4.9 million also falls within our board policy of appropriating 50% of the prior year's unassigned fund balance. The final category under assigned fund balance is the reserve for special projects at $9.8 million. Included in this balance are standard reserve items such as operating dollars allotted to new schools for opening and funds to reimburse the state for salary exceptions. Additional funds were set aside in the amount of $5.2 million for carryover textbook funds, $1.6 million to protect against liability associated with the pension spiking law, $1 million to support class size or average daily membership issues which the school system may face, and $1 million for additional utility expenses based on history and utility rate increases. Tonight on the consent agenda is a request to appropriate $3.9 million of the special projects in combination with insurance reserve to cover immediate needs. The textbook balance was appropriated in July. The next piece, the final category of fund balance, is the unassigned at $12.1 million. These funds are available to the Board of Education to appropriate for a specific purpose. Best practices recommend using the funds for one-time expenditures or in emergency situations. If you appropriate for recurring expenditures, place the board at risk in the next budget year. This amount equals 0.84% of our total operating expenditures. The average daily cost, based on the 2018-19 budget of $1.6 billion, is close to $6 million a day, which means the unassigned fund balance of $12.1 million is just over 2 days of operating. For the board policy, where we want to cap our fund balance unassigned at 6%, the unassigned fund balance is $12.1 million, is 2.6% of this year's county appropriation. And a major reason for an increase, and you see the increase in unassigned, but if you look at the line above, you see a decrease in subsequent year expenditures. So we had an $8 million decrease in subsequent year expenditures, which also led to an increase in unassigned fund balance. So this concludes my presentation. You have some schedules that the auditors include that touched on revenues, expenditures, and fund balance. So if you have any questions for me or Mr. Beatty related to the schedules presented, we'll be glad to answer them.
Questions or comments? Ms. Kushner.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I wanted to thank Mr. Winters and the team again for delivering an excellent audit. It's, as he noted, the first year of a new auditor, so I think it's great that we, in practice, have switched auditors after 6 years of another auditor. So we appreciate the new folk coming in and giving us an audit even earlier than we sometimes get it. We sometimes get it in December. But I would encourage y'all to look at the PowerPoint that had been sent out, because it does show that 78.9% of our budget and our governmental expenditures go to instructional expenditures. That doesn't count the bus drivers and CNS. This is in the classroom. If you want to delineate what that means, it's a significant portion of our budget, and it is a high number for a North Carolina LEA, so I think that's worth noting. If you don't mind going over that, Mr. Winter, on page 6.
Since that's Mr. Beatty's schedule, do you mind if I ask him to speak to it?
Page 6 of that PowerPoint that's in our presentation.
Yeah, so this is a standard graph that we use for all of our school districts clients across the state. And what we try to do is we look at expenditures by the purpose code level. So the instructional expenditures are all your 5,000 purpose codes. And then the other graph includes 6,000 and above. And to your point, there are some debate, or rather some of the expenditures in the other the yellow graph, probably could be in the instructional services graph, which would increase the percentage even higher than it currently is. It's important to note that the purpose codes are administered by DPI, so it's consistent across the state. And to your point, 78.9% is one of the higher percentages that we see across other LEAs that we serve in the state. So.
Okay. Oh, sorry, Dr. Martin, didn't see your hand.
I'll just briefly say thanks as well, and I really want to appreciate your putting it in the context with inflation-adjusted dollars, because I think sometimes it's too easy to just look at total dollars. They're big numbers if it were you're in my pocket, but when we start looking at it across the system, it's not quite as big. But putting in the context of inflation, I think, is incredibly helpful when we think about long-term planning. So thank you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, I see no more hands, so no more comments and questions. And I thank you again, Mr. Winter, Robin, and the auditors, and Ms. Parton. Thank you all for your work and time and effort in making sure that we adequately reflect our finances for Wake County Public Schools. Thank you all very much.
Yes, ma'am.
And thank you, Ms. Kushner, as well. Okay, I will now entertain a motion to approve our consent items.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please note by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We'll now move forward with our action items. The first is the 2019-20 WCPSS enrollment plan. Thank you, Mr. Caruso.
Madam Chair, members of the board, staff brings to you the final draft of the Wake County Public School System Enrollment Plan for 2019-2020. This centers around 4 new schools opening: Southeast Raleigh Elementary, Parkside Elementary, Alston Ridge Middle School, and Green Level High School. It also includes a discussion of additional items that we brought to the work session today. Staff is seeking your approval of the plan. Before so, I'd like to just say thank you to Superintendent Moore, multiple staff members on my team, as well as the Communications Department, Transportation, Magnet Office. I'm sure there's a lot of people I'm missing who've had a hand in working on this, and I really do appreciate the effort, the time, and this is a very difficult decision, but this is the plan that we present to you, and we're seeking your approval.
Thank you, Ms. Caruso. We've had, not just today, but over the last few months, several questions, comments. We've met, lamented, and we, as we all spoke, and I'm sure many of you still have comments that you want to make, both some repeating what was said at the board table, but also here as well. However, prior to doing that, I will entertain a motion to approve the staff's draft agenda.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the 2019-2020 enrollment plan as presented by staff in the work session.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion.
I just want to make it clear that does include both of the items that are listed on the agenda, both the original student assignment plan as well as the additional item brought up in the work session, just so that that's clear on the record.
Thank you, Mr. Blumberg. Discussion. Dr. Martin.
Just to clarify, what was brought up in the work session was the addendum that talked about the undeveloped land and how that will be reassigned.
Yes, sir.
So just for clarification.
Thank you.
Ms. Cash.
Well, I just want to reiterate the fact that we talked about maybe in January that we could look at undeveloped land throughout the whole district. I know there's some in my district, but through the whole county, so we can do that faster.
Certainly.
Thank you.
Yep.
Well, and I'll add to the future discussions that it's clear that we need a discussion of calendar and where we have year-round schools, where we have capacity to offer traditional, where we have traditional capacity. So I think that's an important discussion that the board needs to look at in the spring.
You'd certainly do
or
that
in
as well.
January, if not the spring. Thank you.
Dr. Martin.
I would like to extend thanks to you as well. This is student assignment every year is a very challenging process. It's not, I don't think it's any of our favorite parts of this job, but it's a necessary part of this job. Assignment is one tool that we have to use. It's not the only tool. We gave you guidance earlier in the year. You and staff worked hard to bring a proposal back. There was a lot of give and take, both from the board members and the community. There's been a lot of listening. I think a lot has been heard, even though not all decisions can be made in favor of those comments. But thank you for the work that you and your staff has done, and for working with the board and the community to move things to where we are today. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Other comments, questions? Ms. Mahaffey.
I just want to thank all of you for still taking my phone calls during this time, going up until today. It's never an easy process. There's always improvement to be made. I think we've seen improvement from last year to this year, and it will continue. I think, we will continue to work on it, but it's not easy. And I know just today we were able to add an option for traditional calendar application seats for that area for some of my folks, so that they have more options for traditional calendar for application, and I greatly appreciate that coming.
I think it was said by Mr. Fletcher And I think it's important to also note here, our entire board stepped up to the plate knowing that we have a board vacancy, and I think we always do that, but I think it's absolutely been both visible and heard throughout this community that while we may be elected in districts, I don't think there's anyone at this table who solely looks at their district and their district only. Not only District 7, but I think nearly all of us also went to Ms. Mahaffey's district with her, without her, to continue to try to understand and visibly be able to see, because there is something different about seeing and feeling. There is no easy way to do this. There never is. My really close friend who has no idea this was happening sent me a wonderful text this morning reminding me that we can never make all people happy at all times, and that doesn't make it easier to do it. And I also think it's important noting, and I see it on your face, Glenn, that this isn't easy for you or your staff either. No one leaves this table saying yes, even though there are parents who have expressed their happiness, have thanked us for the work that has been done, which we often don't lift up and reflect. I think it's important to do that, mostly because as someone who runs an agency, I'm usually on that side of the table, and I see that this is just as difficult for you. And so for me, I want to note that I recognize, I don't know when you have slept. I don't have any idea how you've managed all of us and every email. And I think it's important to note that nobody, including you and your staff, does this from a place of personal, because every decision we make is a difficult decision when we know someone or some kids are not getting what they desired, their desired outcomes. And so I want to make sure you know that we all recognize and appreciate and applaud the work that you've done, and your patience, which I'm fascinated by and greatly appreciate. But I also want to make sure we lift up the people who are in a place of gratitude, even though it's hard for us to see gratitude when we know that we are also disappointing people and not able to do. And Mr. Agee, to your point, you're right. We do know what to do. We all disagree, perhaps sometimes, on how we get there, but that doesn't make the outcome that any of us individually feel any different, regardless of what pathway we take or what pathway we didn't take. And there's no easy way to say this. We are going to vote. Unfortunately, we're not going to delay any pieces of this. And I recognize how painstaking this feels. But I definitely want to lift up my colleagues for hanging in there. And for you, Mr. Blumberg, for letting me talk this long and not interrupting, and recognizing that we do need to take a vote, and I won't delay it any further. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. All in favor, please note by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you. Thank you.
The ayes have it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great evening. Have a good holiday.
You too. Next up, Policy Board Policy 3470, Alternative Education Programs in Schools. I think looks both like him and Dr. Gardner.
Well, good evening, Board Chair, Ms. Johnson-Hostler, members of the Board, Superintendent Moore. I'm here to present to you Board Policy 3470, 4305, Alternative Education Program in Schools for first reading. Policy 3470, 4305 is being presented as a revision to current policy. The revisions were reviewed at the September 10th Superintendent's Leadership Team meeting. They were approved at the October 30th Policy Committee meeting. When given final board approval, this policy will replace current policy 3470, 4305, Alternative Education Programs in Schools. We bring this for board approval.
On behalf of the Policy Committee, I'd like to recommend approval of this policy as revised.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please note by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Ayes have it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, Board Policy 6120, Student Health Services.
Good evening. Board Chair, Ms. Johnson-Hostler, members of the board, Superintendent Moore. I present to you tonight Board Policy 6120, Student Health Services, for first reading. Policy 6120 is being presented as part of the Policy Migration Project. The policy was reviewed on September 10th, 2018 by the Superintendent's Leadership Team. It was approved at the October 30th, 2018 Policy Committee meeting. When given final board approval, the policy will replace Policy 6700, Health Services. We ask for board approval.
On behalf of the Policy Committee, I'd like to again move approval of this policy as revised.
And again on first reading.
On first reading.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please know by saying aye. Oh, sorry.
I'd just like to make one comment on this. We had great, robust discussion about this policy in Policy Committee meeting. Really two things. One is I'd like to note that in the recommended policy from the School Boards Association, it was recommended that the policy should say that there is a nurse in every school. That would be a wonderful thing to have in policy, but we can't put something in policy that we can't fund. But I think it's worth noting that that is the normal expectation of what would make a healthy school, is to have a nurse in every school. That said, I want to give a huge thanks to all of our school staff who filled the role of the nurse. Office workers, teachers, administering medicines, taking care of ill children and whatnot. So thank you to all the staff who fill in for that funding gap where we don't have a nurse in every school. But thank you about the policy.
All in favor, please know by saying aye. Any opposed, same sign. The motion carries. You're remaining with us for the next board policy, 6125.
Yes.
Thank you.
I'd like to present to you tonight Board Policy 6125, administering medication to students, for first reading. Policy 6125 is being presented as part of the Policy Migration Project. The policy was reviewed on September 10th, 2018 by the Superintendent's Leadership Team. It was approved on October 30th, 2018 by the Policy Committee. When given board approval, the policy will replace all of the Policy 3260, administering medications. We ask for board approval.
Again, on behalf of the Policy Committee, I'd like to move approval of this revised policy on its first reading. And I may have been wrong about whether the nurse was in this one or the other one, but it was in one of the two. The point stands.
Any other comments? We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please note by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, same sign. The motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Jonathan, would you like to repeat here?
So since
we are.
Do you want to do the HR now?
Motion to approve human resources is discussed in closed session.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please note by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. The motion carries.
And then the closed session motion can be as previously stated and on the printed agenda.
Thank you.
Move to return to closed session for the items previously stated on the agenda.
We have a motion and a second to go back and close. All in favor, please note by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. We will now go back into closed session. Thank you.